Hello and welcome back to UI Chat from the Interface, the podcast focused on the latest news from Ubiquiti and anything network related. I'm Alex, and once again, I'm joined by Evan McCann. Hi, Evan.
Hey, good to be back, and this time no guests, but we do have an absolutely absurd amount of things to cover, so we probably shouldn't just get to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. Obviously, last episode we had Chris Sherwood on from Crosstalk Solutions. That was an awesome episode. It was really, really good fun to have him on. And obviously, the episode before that we had Jesse, and we have got some other awesome guests lined up for the rest of the year. But for this month, it's just me and Evan again. So a little bit of housekeeping before we move any further. You'll notice that this channel on YouTube that you're watching this on, if you listen to audio, no, this is going to be not any relevant to you. But if you're watching on YouTube, the channels on YouTube have changed a little bit. So this channel is now called UI Chat. It used to be called the Interface Podcasts, and if you're aware that there are 3 podcasts that I do essentially, or that the Interface does, they're now on their separate channels. So if you did happen to be interested in EVs, that podcast is now on its own channel. There's a link in the description, so hopefully that clears that up. But there's some links elsewhere. Awesome. We've got a little bit of news. We mentioned it last episode. We have got some merch, and Evan has got his mug now as well. So if you're interested in supporting the episode and the show, we have got some merch as well. So there's some. If you go to store.theinterface.uk, we have got some various things on there. So
yeah, bad promo here. I just I just got my mug today and I washed it, and I just realized right now that it's still down in my kitchen. So
that's no problem.
I can't show it, but I promise I do have it.
Cool. The very first thing we've got to discuss is UWC Miami, so UniFi World Conference Miami. We don't know much about what Ubiquiti announced at that event because it was all under not an NDA, but like loose wraps about what they discussed. But you couldn't make it this time. You had stuff on.
Yeah, correct. I was just down in Florida this past weekend, and I think UWC was a couple days before that, so I couldn't swing a second trip to Florida. So yeah, sad to miss it, just like the one in Chicago and the other ones that have happened the past year. I'm really hoping that they do Chicago or some other, it doesn't have to be Chicago, maybe just some other US site next year. I'll be sure to mark that on my calendar and get to it. But yeah, and the thing about this is like, I know that they have these shows and talk about these things to the people that are there, and they have explicit warnings of like, do not post this on social media. People always do. I noticed, like looking at the news from it, like maybe a day or two later, I noticed there was a lot more drama about like some Reddit threads being taken down.
Oh, really?
So maybe, I don't know if they're more tightly controlling that, but like obviously we can't really discuss any of those things because it's not really public information.
Nope.
And it seems like they're taking that maybe a little bit more seriously. But there was some exciting stuff announced, and I'm sure we'll hear all the details about that stuff soon publicly.
Yeah, I'm hoping they will do some more events elsewhere because last year they had that span of a few months where they went to Singapore, Dubai, I think, obviously London and various other places. So I'm hoping starting next year again they'll do like this UWC Part 2 version that they had last week. So get to see all the cool stuff they announced. Yeah, and hopefully we will have some more busy episodes than this one. There's as we alluded to earlier in the show, there's a lot of stuff to get through, and the first of which is a bit sad. And I think the writing was on the wall for a while, or not the writing on the wall, but it was inevitable that Ubiquiti was going to end free UISP hosting. I think anyway, when you look at it. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So this was something they announced in October. I believe the names confused me a little bit, but I believe it was UISP Cloud, and it was free as long as you had 10 active devices. Because I know I signed up and got a server several times, but I only had 1 or 2 just to like test with. And after 30 days or whatever, they would say, hey, you don't have the 10 device requirement, so we're going to shut your server down. But that was a nice free option, especially for smaller MSPs or ISPs that just had a few devices, didn't want to host it themselves. But now the new option is UISP Hosting Professional and Hosting Carrier. And that's very similar to their UniFi options, where it's either $30 or $100 a month, depending on how many devices you have. the hosting carrier is 10,000 devices, which is kind of crazy to see there. And of course, you can still self-host it for free. You can still use the UISP console or, something like Hostify, wink, wink.
Did you see the UISP console actually got dropped in price temporarily?
Yeah, it was down to 99 US dollars. I'm not sure if it was in all
similar
regions.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of that is like a temporary price drop, right? Like that was we're sorry, we canceled this free service. Here, take this as a consolation prize.
Yep.
So I assume it'll go back to, I think $299 was the normal.
I think so, $399 maybe, because it's quite a powerful router. It's not just a cloud key; it's an all-in-one little thing. It reminded me to dig mine because I've got one for testing here, so I dug mine out, and the setup process was a bit headachy because it was so far behind in software. But the question, I forgot how it worked. So the question I had was like, because it's local to your home network, can it then only see stuff locally? But no, it does the same sort of cloud broker magic to what UniFi Protect does and the UDM does, where they give it a website address, so like UISP console dot something. If you're migrating from UISP Cloud, they'll give you your old host name and attach it to your
and
console.
That's nice for them to do.
Yeah,
it stinks this free service is going away, but it kind of was inevitable, like you said, and they did kind of do a few things, like the price drop on the console and the ability to transfer your domain. I feel like they did it probably in the best way possible, but it still stinks to see, something that used to be free now you have to pay for.
I think the problem is, I made a video on the Hostify channel talking about it ending. And I just said, I think one of my things I said was hosting servers cost money, even if it's there's a monthly fee attached to that, and they can't. Their WISP business isn't as big as it used to be. Because I remember at the WISP I used to work for, we signed up for the UNMS, as it was called at that stage, and we had like 7,000 devices on it. So we were more than making up for it. But the problem is, if someone buys, let's say, 200 devices, but doesn't buy any more, that recurring revenue isn't going to, I don't know. I can see why they've done it. They need to make, well, they're making a lot of money on it, but they can't just spend money for the sake of it. So it makes sense. And obviously there are other options. You can self-host it if you want, or use other things. So all good. One thing I found was that if you're moving to the UISP console, the UniFi payment gateway is not available. And what this is if you're using the UCRM or the CRM section of UISP, Ubiquiti have got their own super easy and super cheap thing to process credit card payments. Otherwise, you have to use Stripe and do some API nonsense and stuff. And for some reason, when you migrate, it doesn't work. And their help guide just says it's not supported on. It's only supported on UISP cloud hosting. So I'm hoping they'll update that guide at some point and make it available, because that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably for the best. I mean, the way I view the UISP console, it is more of a Dream Machine style, or Cloud Gateway Ultra. It is a pretty powerful little router, but I wouldn't be hosting public services and having my customers pay based on this little UISP console sitting somewhere on my network.
I know.
You need something more robust. So yeah, probably for the best.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of stuff that you put in the show notes I forgot. Well, I didn't even realize was announced. Like there was EdgeRouter software as well. I didn't even see it. But this one is a security bulletin that relates to self-hosted UniFi applications. But
so this affects 8.4.62 and earlier. So if you're not running one of the most recent updates, this was a CVE that was disclosed. It has a pretty high score of 8.8, so it's a pretty serious vulnerability, but it does require local access. So, but it does allow a malicious actor with a local operational system user to execute high privileged access actions. This was fixed in 8.5.6.
Okay.
It is pretty serious, but just, if you're not running one of the latest, if you're not running 8.5.6 yet, make sure you do look into upgrading soon.
I believe, I think we tweeted out at Hostify that I think this doesn't affect us for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why, but I think we've rolled out 8.5.6 as a precaution anyway, so which is all good.
Yeah, and if it's a cloud hosted or
UniFi
hosted server, I don't think that this attack vector is I don't know the specifics, so I don't want to talk without knowing the specifics. But yeah, basically, it is a very serious threat, but it's only with local access, so it may not affect you depending on how you're running the network application.
Yeah, and just a disclosure, we're not security experts, so
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah,
No, we are not.
I was super surprised by this. UniFi Talk now supports third-party SIP devices. I wasn't not expecting this at all.
Yeah, and this is a fun follow up from last month when we were talking with Chris, because he mentioned that when we were talking about the NVR supporting ONVIF or ONVIF cameras, and now he was like, hey, this is an example of something I would love to see them support third party SIP servers, and lo and behold, 3.4, there's been several different builds, but they're all still EA. So this hasn't gone to general access yet, but 3.4, whichever build ends up going GA, will support third-party SIP. So exciting news for UniFi Talk users.
Well, not only third-party SIP providers, but also third-party SIP devices. So I've seen on the forums that people have got third-party ATA things like Grandstream ATA working, and deck phones and all sorts of various things, and having various problems with that, of course. But it's cool because, if you want to run UniFi Talk locally on a Dream Machine and have the nice GUI, you can now use your third-party ATA adapters, because at the moment the UniFi Talk ATA things are out of stock in most regions. So getting a hold of those, if that's your next step to move to UniFi Talk, it's just impossible. So
yeah, and I remember you talking with Willie probably in the first episode of the show about this way back when. So I feel like this was probably the biggest missing thing from Talk. So now with this, especially once it goes GA and the bugs get ironed out, I feel like this kind of turns it into more of a real usable phone solution for a lot more people.
Yeah, well, that's been what is it, 18 months possibly since I think we started the show April last year. So yeah, time goes very quickly.
Yeah, speaking of time going quickly, the amount of hardware and the amount of like YouTube video teasers and other things, like October was just like chock full of stuff to get through. So we're going to try to go through this quickly, but there is a lot. Probably way back when, like 2-3 weeks ago, we got the UNAS Pro and UniFi Drive.
Yep.
So that's a new hardware device. The UNAS Pro, it's very similar, almost identical to the UNVR Pro. It's a $500 2U appliance with 7 hard drive bays. I think the only hardware difference is the NVR has 4 gigs of RAM. The NAS has 8 gigs of RAM. Otherwise, almost everything is identical.
I didn't see that. Cool.
Right. And the UniFi Drive is the software. And I believe UniFi Drive, that application, only runs on this one device now.
That's right.
So they may have a non-pro version in the future, but you can't install UniFi Drive on a UNVR, like a existing UniFi Protect appliance that you have. And you can't do the same thing. You can't apply Protect to this NAS. So this hardware is only for file storage, and UniFi Drive only runs here, at least right now. And it's pretty wild. I mean, I read this deep dive NAScompares.com review. They did a great write-up, and I believe they've done a ton of videos too. So there's a lot of videos. It was like my YouTube homepage that day was just flooded with like 10 different, check out this new product. But it does seem like a really great solution for a basic NAS and file storage. Have you looked into it at all?
I want one because as we discussed before on the podcast, my file storage solution for video editing is beyond stupid. I just got SSDs hanging off the back of my iMac. So it got to the point where last month I was looking at Synologies and thinking, okay, I'm fed up of waiting for this thing now. But no, this has got some very cool features. So it's got, you could, like a Synology, it can just be your SMB share. It's got Apple Time Machine support natively. You can even have it back up to a external NAS. So I thought of a really cool solution. You could, if you had the budget, you could hire some colo space in a data center, put another UNAS in there, and have it back up out off site in case you had like something go wrong with a building or something, and I don't know, it got stolen. And then on top of that, it can back up to Google Drive, OneDrive, and all those sort of other services. But as well, it will integrate with UniFi Identity. So if you're using it as a company thing, they've really pushed the the thread of non-subscription enterprise services. So as a alternative to using Google Drive for your company, because that adds up a lot for monthly subscriptions. I think within 2 months you could probably pay for the device, basically, when you look at Google Drive subscriptions. It's really cool. I'm glad they're doing it, because Ubiquiti always got like an Apple-esque to them in terms of making something complicated quite simple. So I'm looking forward to it. I do really want one to run my Final Cut Pro software on. So
yeah, and all the stuff you mentioned, it is pretty robust in that. If you're looking to do like file shares, it does snapshotting, so you can roll back to the way this file was yesterday. There's a lot of features, and it seems like it's pretty well built out. The probably downside is it still is just a quad core ARM processor, so it doesn't support running other VMs. You can't run containers. There's a lot of stuff that like a Synology or a QNAP will do that this doesn't do, at least as of right now with this model. Like I mentioned, you can't run Protect on it. You could use it as storage for your NVR, I guess.
Yes, you
I'm
can.
not sure, but yeah. So yes, technically you can't run Protect on it, but you could use it to store or archive video footage.
Yeah.
Doesn't have dual power supplies. RAM isn't expandable. There's no PCIe expansion. There's no RAID 0 or RAID 6 support. No cache SSD support. So there's a lot of things that other NAS do that this doesn't. But if you're just trying to do file shares and the things Alex has mentioned, it's a great price, and it seems like it's really well featured for that.
Yeah, looks cool. We'll link the NAS Compares review in the description, as well as Cody's review, because he's done a really cool video on the NAS as well. And it supports SSDs and stuff. So yeah, looks really, really cool. Looking forward to having a look at that whenever I can. These new switches, the UniFi Enterprise Campus switches, I was waiting for these to be revealed, because these were actually half announced at UWC in April. So they discussed these switches in some detail from what I can remember. I can't remember much from that event, but these are basically the first 100 gig switches from Ubiquiti. Kind of discounting the Leaf switches that they had a while back, but.
Yeah, I was going to say that first thing I thought of when I saw these was there's the data center Leaf, which I think already was the second revision of the data center Leaf name, but that was back in 2022, I believe.
I think so.
But yeah, so ignoring the past and the leaks that we've heard about and all of these things, like what we have is 3 different models. They have the aggregation, they have the 24 port and the 48 port. The aggregation is all fiber. So it's all 25 gig SFP28, and there's 600 gig QSFP28s for uplinks. The 24 port and 48 port are mostly a mix of 2.5 gig and 10 gig RJ45, and they do have the 25 gig SFP28 uplinks. In the teaser video, they mentioned it supports MC lag, which is multi-chassis link aggregation, and they also support switch stacking, which is another new thing for UniFi. VRRP, BGP, OSPF support is coming soon, and ether lighting, because of course in your very serious campus data center you need RGB lighting on your interfaces. And they do support, which is wild, 90 watt PoE plus 3 pluses.
So that's still called 802.3 BT, but it's like a new version of
so they specify it's 802.3 BT Type 4 Class 8.
Interesting. That's the first I've heard about it. So
that's like the next tier up from normal, or what we consider normal 802.3 BT or UPoE. Some vendors use that term. That's a 60 watt PoE standard. This is 90 watt.
Jeez.
So yes, very high throughput, very high PoE output. Every RJ45 on those 24 and 48 port are the PoE plus.
Yep.
So yeah, very serious use cases and very serious pricing. The $23.99 price for the 24, and $39.99 for the aggregation in the 48 port.
I guess because Ubiquiti hasn't had the audience or the users of Ubiquiti aren't I don't know, not quite as, it's more prosumer, isn't it? So personally, I don't really know what switch stacking is. Could you give like a layman's why you would need it?
Yeah, so putting MC lag aside, just switch stacking. I typically deal with Cisco. You might deal with other vendors, but in the Cisco world or the typical enterprise switch world, you would have multiple physical switches that are all one logical switch. So it would have one management, one management IP address to go to,
Okay.
one configuration file to manage. It's just, like for me in our new building that we just built, we have 4 switches in one stack, so it's one device to manage that. It's just all handled. And yeah, they didn't really detail that. They only showed it very briefly in a screenshot that flew by in like a second in the video. But they just show like, you pick these 4 individual switches and it'll make a logical stack. And then that also ties into MC lag or multi-chassis lag, which is if you have basically an aggregation in one building and an aggregation in another building, you can kind of group them and manage them as one unit, for lack of a better term there.
Okay, so these are some proper advanced stuff
Yeah,
we're getting into now.
Yeah, those features, stacking and MC lag, that definitely, like, they're starting to earn that enterprise branding that they've been giving these things, along with VRRP, which is, we've seen that on the enterprise and the higher end Dream Machines and UXGs, where it's virtual router redundancy, BGP and OSPF. I personally wouldn't run that on my core switch. I'm not sure exactly how that would tie in, but having those features available and continuing expanding what UniFi switching can do is definitely putting them into markets and buildings and networks that they would not fit into before.
Yeah.
So they're really pushing hard, and this is the latest example of that.
What I thought was cool as well, they got dual hot swappable power supplies, but also hot swappable fans as well, so you can purchase additional fans.
Yeah,
which is quite cool.
One fan can go down without your switch blowing up,
Yeah.
So
wow.
And the other fun thing from this video was, I think you had mentioned it or tweeted about it.
Yeah,
but
I did.
It was like a 1-second clip where they showed a new kind of square-ish AP. Presumably, this is the U7 Enterprise. Maybe it's a different model. Maybe it's U7.
I zoomed in on a picture, and it says U7E. So I only have to imagine that's U7 Enterprise. So
okay, I was gonna say maybe it's the U7. Swiss Army knife. Who knows? But the exciting thing was it showed dual uplinks, which I don't think any of the U6 APs do, and definitely none of the U7 APs so far do. No. But yay for the return of dual uplinks on APs. I think it's been since the AC Pro, AC HD.
I only have to imagine this is probably dual power uplinks as well, possibly. So you can power it twice. So, and I'd imagine with that, sensibly, you'd probably power one of them off one switch and the second one off another switch, probably. So you got some sort of redundancy there.
Hopefully, you don't need dual 90-watt PoE.
Imagine that.
Plus.
I also can't work out how big it is because the screenshot, it's the same size as the ceiling tile.
So it's probably going to be it's probably going to be big, expensive, draw a lot of power. The feature set has to be, what is it? The U7 Pro Max has the spectral analysis. It's going to have to be higher than that. So either more spatial streams. I'm not sure what else they could do in the enterprise model, but I'm excited to see that when it comes out.
Yeah, I got no idea. And we're gonna have to hope this is a not a repeat of the original AC Square one, which had some sort of issues.
Well, hey, it's not out yet. They still have some time to fix whatever's wrong with it. So,
I thought so. Both me and you have quite a wispy Air Max background, so we're well aware of the products that Ubiquiti makes for that sort of market and area. But I made a video for the Hostify channel today, which went out. So we're recording this on Wednesday. But Ubiquiti have made these 2 new devices, one of which looks like a nanobeam, but they're called the UniFi Device Bridge and UniFi Device Bridge Pro. And these are very similar ethos in products to the UniFi building bridges, where they are UniFi managed outdoor links, essentially. and they look quite interesting. So the first one is a little device called the device bridge. It looks like a PoE injector, but it's essentially a way to get a wired device, be it PoE or not, it could be anything, connected to the network. It's like a wireless adapter basically with an Ethernet PoE out on it. But I thought that was quite cool, really. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think the device bridge, I'd have to double check, but I believe it's indoor. So it's more so like if you don't want to run a long cable to a faraway camera or access point or something like that, this would like do that. And then basically the power supply connects to your UniFi Wi-Fi network with auto link.
Yeah.
So that's it's a pretty nice thing to kind of expand your UniFi network in a flexible way, especially when you don't want to run a long cable. The Bridge Pro, it's definitely more of a nano beam style product. It does the same thing where you can kind of aim it towards your UniFi Wi-Fi network and it'll auto connect that way. But you can also have a pair of Bridge Pros, and they do basically do the same thing as like a UISP point-to-point link. So this can be, I think they advertise 5 kilometers or 3 miles of range. So you could have a long distance link to another building or to a faraway access point or camera, those kind of things. And those will link up and make a wireless link to extend your network that way. I personally, I'm more comfortable with the UISP products, but this being in the UniFi world, I think is going to allow people to build those kind of networks a lot easier than going into UISP.
Yes, in the video I made today, I had a section in there, why have they done this? And it's more, I came up with the reason that UniFi is an incredibly strong brand.
For sure.
But also it reduces complexity. So there are a lot of people which are going to really struggle with doing the whole config of a nanobeam. It is quite involved if you're not too comfortable doing it. You have to set your laptop to a static range. You have to configure SSIDs, passwords. You have to change. We're used to, but there's a lot of steps there, and it can be quite tricky. So those are more specialized. Those can still do point to multipoint. You can connect 50, 60, 100 clients to one AP if you want to. These can't do that. They are strictly point to point if you do them that way. But the other benefit is PoE. So apart from the NanoStation 5AC, the big one, all of those are 24 volt passive, which has its downsides, but it also has a legacy rooted within the WISP industry. These are all 48 volt standard PoE, which is again a less experienced person might think, oh, why is this 24 volt? It doesn't work. It doesn't power up. It's broken. So at least they can plug it in. It still works, and it also powers up the cameras, because that's one of the use cases they suggested, was that you put this somewhere, have a camera pointed somewhere and stuff, and it's all the same voltage. It all works nicely. But then also you don't have to have a separate, if you're an MSP, you don't have to have a separate controller to run it and stuff. It all goes in there nicely. So yeah, I know why they've done it. It makes a lot of sense. And
for $100 for the non-pro, and what, $200 for the pro model, or $400 for a pair. These make a lot more sense to me than the building bridge, because yes, you still get that simplicity. I think there is some differences with PoE, just like you mentioned, but those for $499 or $999, I always felt like they were kind of poor value, especially compared to like a pair of nano beams that can do the same thing.
Well, the building bridge is 60 gigahertz.
Right. Okay. So maybe not the nano beam, the like gigabeam the products.
Yeah,
they do have 60 gigahertz. So But I was very surprised by this announcement. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I think a lot of people that only are comfortable with UniFi or aren't a network engineer or don't have a background in the WISP industry like we do, it's a no-brainer to kind of solve that problem of how do I extend my network easily.
The other thing I came up with is that UniFi, it didn't for a while, but I've got 2 building bridge links here. They didn't used to, but they now report back their topology back to UniFi. So it used to be that the switches downstream of those building bridges just existed in the ether and didn't know where they were, but now they actually report it properly. So it happens a lot where someone has installed something, leaves it for some other idiot to clean it up. So at least now, if someone comes and looks at an installation someone's done remotely, they can at least see where everything's connected. Have to sort of work out what someone's done. So
Yeah.
there's that side as well. So yeah.
And speaking of teasers, they also, as far as I know, these products aren't in the store anywhere. They haven't really given us specifications, but they did have another video talking about UISP Wave MLO.
This was
I know
surprising.
I know you've covered this and wrote about it. I don't know
Yeah.
if you want to take this one.
Yeah, sure. So I did find some stats. So if you go, it's not in the store, but if you go to like, the product showcase section of the website, there's a bit in there where they've outlined all the technology platforms. There's a bit of information, not much though. So in the outdoor space, Ubiquiti has been a bit behind in terms of 6 gigahertz support. So I know in the UK that the laws have just opened up, but in the US I'm not sure. But there's other vendors like Cambium which have caught up with 6 gigahertz, and Ubiquiti's been a little bit behind. So these two new devices look identical to the LTU rocket, and that means they support all the mounts like the USP horn, the USP what do they call it, big antenna thing. But you've got the Wave MLO 5, the Wave MLO 6. And by name, these are 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz point to multipoint and point to point platforms. And there is a new station to go with it. So we have got a Wave MLO CPE, which looks identical to the Wave Pro CPE in terms of design. And these have some pretty interesting performance specs. There isn't much information to go on, but the 5 gigahertz model can do up to 5 gigabits per second, and the 6 gigahertz model can do up to 8 gigabits per second. And these are all unlicensed by design. Also, like the AirFiber 5X products, these support 54 volts PoE, so it's quite high voltage. And again, we've got 10 gig SFP plus support for data as well. But yeah, like you said, that we don't know the prices. We don't know when it's going to get released, but there is a little dribble of information about what these can do. But they look pretty interesting, and it makes me wonder what they're going to do with LTU, because LTU was dropped a while back as this brand new WISP specific silicon and what sort of jazz. But what's going to happen to that now? So yeah.
Yeah, I'm still sad about the LTU. That's the hardware I probably used the most
Yep.
back in my WISP days. And yeah, they did, I think it was 2018 roughly. And they had big promises of, this is going to take us into the Wi-Fi 6 era. And they never really fully delivered on the promise of what LTU is. So yes, it's good to be hesitant, and especially because these products are just announced and we don't really know all the details. But yeah, it's been a very long wait for outdoor 6 gigahertz use in general, just industry wide. It's been a very slow rollout because indoor 6 gigahertz use is what's known as low power indoor, and you can kind of just use it like a normal AP. There's nothing really new about 6 gigahertz besides what rules you have in your country for that. Like I think in the UK you have less frequency available. Like I think Europe only has 500 megahertz. Whereas in the US, we have 1.2 gigahertz. So we have significantly more spectrum, but we're still limited on power. Mm-hmm. And to operate outdoors and at higher power level, that's what we've been waiting years for. There's been a few vendors, like you mentioned, Cambium, Mimosa, but Ubiquiti hasn't done that outdoor high power 6 gigahertz until now. So it's good to finally see it. I'm excited to see more details about this, but right now it's just kind of, hey, this is coming, but still very exciting.
Yeah, there was also, again, it makes me wonder what we're going to do with LTU, but yeah, we shall see. This was all, again...
They're still selling Air Max M.
I know.
From what, a decade ago?
More than that now, 15 years ago?
Yeah, so it'll probably continue to be a product in their lineup. But yes, anyone considering LTU, or if you have a LTU network now and you're looking to upgrade, obviously consider other vendors, but maybe take a look at this when it's out as well.
Sure. So like the other announcement they've had in the past few weeks, this was part of a video, and there was a few other bits and pieces dropped. They also announced, they talked about UISP 3.0, but there wasn't much information about that. So there was also the Wave AP Gen 2 announced as well. This looks to be the replacement for that 30-degree unit they had before, that quite a thick device. This is now 90 degrees by default, but you also mentioned it's got improved 5 gigahertz backup, and there's also external antennas supported as well. I did notice as well, I still can't work out what it's for, but they've got the WaveFiber OLT, and it looks to be there's only like 1 or 2 ports on it, from what I can figure out. It seems very strange. I don't really know what it's for.
Yeah, we don't really have the details. I would assume it's meant for CPE, like at your customer end, but I'm not sure what that device is. But $399 is the price, and more details to come.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure with that. So, okay. So someone on Reddit said it says it's got a single XGS PON interface. It's an OLT, so it's designed to go um, at the mast end. Someone said it's a combo device, so it supports XGS and GPON, which is something they've obviously got separate OLTs. It says they are supported on different wavelengths, so you can only run one per transceiver. So I'd imagine this is a little device that supports both at the same time. I haven't played around with fiber for a while, so I'm not too sure. So yeah. So we now we've got another UniFi mobile router device announced. This is the UMR Ultra. So we have the UMR, the original one we discussed a few episodes ago, the UMR Industrial, which is that sort of outdoor one which has weatherproofing and stuff. This one is indoor only, and by Ultra by name it is stripped back a little bit. So the other device is the other device is $199. This one's $129, and it removes a few features. So we lose PoE pass through, we lose GPS, we lose 5 gigahertz support, and we get 10 by 100 Ethernet ports. But you noted it comes with a 180-day trial of Mobility Cloud, so I don't think the other devices come with that, which is quite good.
Yeah, I noticed that in the small print. So it's $2 a month, $19 for a year, or $49 for 3 years per unit.
Yep.
But yeah, you do get basically half a year for free. I don't think that the other devices do that.
No.
And I'm not sure. Mobility Cloud is just kind of for managing these, especially if you have like a fleet of them.
Yep.
That's kind of the idea for Mobility Cloud.
Yeah.
So nice. I think they're trying to get people to start using that service and then, turn into paying customers. But nice that you're getting a free trial there for that.
Yeah, you don't really need it if you just want to use it locally. It's got a local GUI now. It's got OpenVPN, WireGuard support, all sorts of stuff. I'm due to update my video on it because there's been so much software updates for them. So stay tuned for that. We've got a bonus hardware product. This is not very exciting. It's just a little stand for the Intercom viewer screen. It's $20.
I saw Cody was very excited about it though.
Oh, okay.
He was like, finally, we got a stand. So yeah, it's a $29 stand thingy for the Intercom viewer if you need one of those.
Yeah. So yeah, I've not used any Intercom devices. I know we chatted to Jesse a few episodes ago about the Intercom device. So yeah. Okay, that's all the hardware, and we've now got the mega load of software to get through now.
Yes, and again, we'll try to be as brief as possible. The big one, along with that security alert, we did get UniFi Network 8.5.6. We covered this last time. It's adding NetFlow, packet capture for gateways, improved dashboard, customizable widgets, and it fixes that security vulnerability that we mentioned earlier. That is now GA. I think it went GA a week or two ago, so maybe mid-October. We also got 3 different builds of 8.6, the next version of UniFi Network. It seems like it's pretty light on features, especially compared to 8.4 and 5. We got some new languages. Some settings were renamed and moved. We got packet captures on WAN ports, some bug fixes. But the big one for me is MLO on Wi-Fi 7 now requires WPA3 or WPA3 Enterprise.
Interesting.
And it updated the VLAN limit to 500 for the Enterprise Fortress Gateway and the UXG Enterprise. So there's a couple different builds of this. It's not GA yet, but I assume sometime in November we'll see 8.6 go GA.
Yeah, the 8.5.6 update with the new dashboard, it's got a weird quirk. If you've got a network that's got UXG, on the left-hand side, you get that little widget that tells you your ISP and stuff. By default, that's not there, and you've got to go in and turn it on every time. I think that's a bug, but I'm not sure. Very weird.
Fix coming for that in 8.6, maybe. The other half of this was we finally, I think there were several versions of UniFi Network that said requires UniFi OS 4.1 for this feature. So this was BGP, NetFlow, packet captures, IPv6 traffic identification, all of those things finally got added. We finally got our first builds of 4.1 for the cloud gateways and the UXGs. So the firewall or gateway side of those features, we finally have them. They're in EA. And I don't think any of them have gone GA yet, but I haven't looked for a few days.
No. No, there's some good stuff there. Says got IPv6 DNS shield support as well, so that's quite good.
Yeah, and IPv6 in general, they build out a lot of features to add IPv6 support. I think traffic identification was probably the biggest one. So previously, I think it was only IPv4,
right.
but now you can identify, traffic to Amazon or Apple or insert bad website here over IPv6 as well.
Custom certificates. So it says. So that says custom certificates for guest portal as well. So that's interesting.
So this is custom certificates for your web interface. So you could upload a certificate to prevent you from getting that security alert when you go to the local web interface.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's what this is. So you could create a host name, upload a certificate to secure that host name, or however you want to do it. That is just for the management interface. The custom certificates for your guest portal, that feature is coming soon. I think that's been long promised. Who knows when it'll arrive, but they did officially announce that is coming soon.
So what's the current problem with not having the certificates then? I haven't seen an issue with that. Or is it
like for me, I go to 10.250.10.1 in my web browser, and I get that this site is not secure.
Oh, sorry, I meant with the guest portal.
Guest portal, same thing. If you don't have a certificate securing that web page, people will see that either you either need to use HTTP unencrypted, or you need to use HTTPS and get the certificate
splash
warning
screen.
saying, yeah. So a guest will join your network and see security alert, unsecure network, and maybe back out. So I think people have been begging for that feature for a long time.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
It doesn't seem like it's here yet. Maybe that's a 8.6 network feature, but I'm not sure.
Okay, that's cool. And there's obviously some renamings of control plane because they like to switch up what everything's called every 6 months. So
yes, that or at least I have praised Ubiquiti's push to enterprise and all the features they're adding. I think this is my last huge complaint: is the constant moving of settings, renaming of settings, rebranding of things. The feature they just added was there's a checkbox to make your Wi-Fi network go to a 2.4 gigahertz only IoT mode. They've already renamed it from their renaming, and that was like a week ago. So it's just like, pick a name, stop moving things. Hopefully that kind of enterprisey, boring stability eventually comes. I mean, things are still moving around, and features are being added. It kind of makes sense to kind of get into a stable place, but they still continue to move things and rename them more. Like, even if we can't keep up, and we're talking about this every month and kind of paying attention, normal people don't stand a chance.
No. And I guess this looks like it's part of that cloud gateway software. So we've got a hotspot 2.0 / passpoint on the original UDM base, I guess that is, and the UDR. And got directory integration that's, I guess, separate to UniFi Identity. So you've got various LDAP servers and jump cloud in there, which is quite cool. Pretty good.
And improved efficiency, and of course bug fixes.
Nice.
Yes, always.
You put in here UISP console 5.1.0. This is awesome because I've set up a UISP console the other day, as I mentioned earlier. What a pain, because I've got to use the phone to do it, and now they're adding, weirdly, it's not a web page like an EdgeRouter. It's a captive portal implementation, which is a bit odd. So when you set up the UISP router and the UISP console for the first time on this version of software, it looks like I just launched a captive portal to allow you to set it up. So interesting.
Yeah, and a bunch of other bug fixes. I mean, software on these devices definitely moves slowly, but they improved OSPF. A lot of the underlying software packages got upgraded. So like a newer version of OpenSSH and those kind of things. A lot of behind-the-scenes security work which is good to see. But the local web interface definitely is better for a lot of people than whipping out their phone and using Bluetooth. So good to see that being added.
Yeah. And then you put here Switch Ultra and Flex Mini 205 has gone GA, and it now adds on the US Ultra, for at least now adds support for spanning tree protocol. I think we alluded to this last episode where I can't remember exactly what, but those switches now have spanning tree, which is quite good. So
yeah, the Switch Ultra has spanning tree in this. The Flex Mini and I believe the Flex Mini 2.5 still don't, but I think they kind of promised that. So maybe the Flex Mini and Flex Mini 2.5 will get regular non-proprietary spanning tree soon.
Yeah.
And speaking of slow moving, the EdgeRouter 3.0.0 plods on. It's been 5 months since the previous release candidate. Wow. We now are up to release candidate 9. So I think this beta process has been a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But in this build, they improved the config tree, improved the UI, a bunch of those underlying packages and security improvements got applied there. It does make a change to the default firewall rule. It prevents traffic inbound on ETH1. It'll log client IP addresses to allow brute force detection. And it disabled SSH by default. So it seems like they're really kind of locking that down. And if 3.0.0 ever goes GA before the edge routers are discontinued, some good improvements there.
Yeah. I don't know when that's going to go GA. They fixed the remote access feature, which on recent versions of UISP, that button disappeared. But as soon as I updated my edge routers to this version, it appeared again, but it still doesn't quite work. So I'm not sure what's going on there. So
yeah, they mentioned improved remote access with UISP 2.4.152 and newer. So maybe in release candidate 10 in 5 months from now.
Yeah.
With UISP 3.0, maybe that'll work again. Who knows?
Yeah, and then in the release notes, there's still some various known issues and things that have been there since the dawn of time. So,
right. Yeah.
Whew. That's a lot.
I'm tired.
Wow. What a month. That's huge. Okay. Is there anything we've been working on before we disappear?
Working on a nap. That's what I'm working on. No, I did do a comparison chart update for UniFi, and it's already out of date. So I have to update that for the definitely not data center leaf and spine switches. The what are they? Enterprise Campus. I have to add those. And in general, like, it's interesting. I keep up with Ubiquiti for this show. I'm always paying attention to what they're doing, but I haven't had time to write much lately. And the time that I have, I've been spending a lot more time focusing on other vendors. So Alta Labs, they released their Route 10, their routing platform, kind of similar to what a UXG or a Dream Machine would do for you in the UniFi world. It's a very interesting product. I'm looking at that, and a couple other vendors have reached out to me for equipment so who knows? Maybe I'll be covering vendors outside Ubiquiti. So.
Maybe we start a new spin-off show called Alta something or other. I don't know.
Alta Chat. Yeah.
Maybe if they release a lot of interesting stuff, we could start, because this is a podcast about Ubiquiti primarily, but networking in general. So we could talk about Alta stuff if there's anything interesting they're doing. I haven't had a chance to play with anything, so I might have a look at see what they're doing. But it's always interesting not to put all your eggs in one basket, I guess. So
yeah, they're definitely interesting. We've known that the Route 10 product was coming for a while. They finally released it. It looks really nice, but it is very early stages. Like they have a lot of features that are coming soon.
Yeah.
There's only one model. So yeah, interesting company to pay attention to. But early days.
From what I remember, I think Chris, I just know him as UBNT CMB. I can't remember his name. Oh, Chris Bolcher. I think he left PF Sense to go to Ubiquiti to work on the USGs. Does he now work for Alta Labs?
Yes. So he is the guy behind. There was something before PF Sense. I can't remember the name, but kind of a legendary thing. And then he was the primary guy for PF Sense in the early days. He worked for Ubiquiti for 5 odd years, and that was kind of during the early Dream Machine era. And he left like a year or two ago and went to Alta Labs, and this is the result of that. So I'm always interested in interested to see what he does just because of his history. So I'm expecting big things from Route 10, but we'll see where it goes.
Just as a side note, what's their situation on controller? Do they host it for you? Do they allow you to do it locally? What do they do?
Yeah, you can use their free cloud. So just go to a website and manage your device there.
Okay.
They did release like a Cloud Key like device where you can host it locally, and I believe you can download it and host it yourself as well.
Okay. There's some good options there then. Okay, I'll have a little look. So in terms of what I've been doing, I've, again, like you a little bit, I haven't had time to write a lot because I've been busy filming a lot of stuff lately for Hostify, for my own the car channel. So if you didn't know, there's a car because a car YouTube channel that I do as well for the interface. So I've been very busy with car reviews and stuff, and yeah, various things. Things are very busy at the moment. I was working on a video last week for the SolarPoint is 24 volts, and I wanted to put a G5 bullet on the solar panel. So I plugged in a little, I don't think I've got it with me, but a little adapter that basically converts 24 volt to 48 volt. And I had such a... I got it. I don't know. It's somewhere. Anyway, it was one I was really trying hard to find, but it basically it weirdly broke the SolarPoint, like in a weird way. So I had the power enabled on the port I plugged it in, and for whatever reason, the SolarPoint was still working. It was still charging devices, but the pings to the SolarPoint IP address were scatty. They were all over the place. Anything plugged into the SolarPoint that was powered from it was all over the place. I think I spent like 5 hours troubleshooting this thing. And the SolarPoint has got its own wireless interface. So I reset it. The port that I'd plugged this thing into was stuck on 10 meg, even if there was nothing plugged into it. And the wireless interface was working. So I reckon in plugging the thing in, the period, like passive period, it sort of fried something, and some chip on the board has been fried. So I've purchased a new one and it arrived today. So my little video is going to be a bit longer about... I remember...
Did you get a puff of magic smoke, or was it...
Nothing happened.
Just those... Okay.
So I've got this little Ethernet tester that's got PoE testing built in. I was thinking, oh no, this thing's drawing like, I don't know, 50 watts or something stupid. I don't know. So I plugged this thing in. Everything was normal. Everything was running at 3 watts, what it should be. It was saying 24 volts out the machine and 48 volts out the SolarPoint. So how very odd. I remember back in the day, I managed to blow up an EdgePoint S16 by plugging its power in. Yeah, so I think it's sort of the similar sort of thing where passive PoE is a bit of a... So I'm going to give it another shot tomorrow. So
yes, and this is why devices like the Device Bridge, the Device Bridge Pro, where you just plug it in, normal PoE, it's so much better than the passive world, especially when you run into weird stuff like that.
Yeah, so very strange. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you so much for listening to the UI Chat podcast. If you like what we do, follow the show on all the podcast platforms, and you can watch us on YouTube. Try and give us a review. That really helps other people find this show. And if you don't want to hear the ads on the audio version, there is a paid subscription version for the UI Chat podcast that gets you access to all 3 shows that we do, ad free as well. So thank you so much, and we'll see you again next time.
Cut.
We'll start again.